welcome back to History of Wine and the Vine. I'm Emily Kate. Now, when I'm researching for my independent research at university, I break up the entire history of wine into different topics. So I have politics, trade, religion, and literature, for example. So one of my favorite topics is actually literature. And what this mainly focuses on is the idea of wine poems throughout history. So that's one of the main things that I look at. Now, wine poems are really fun to look at and actually was one of the inspirations for actually studying history of wine at university. So what happened was I was in a course, so I'm a medieval history major, and I was actually in a course that was discussing Islamic history, and there was this wine poet named Abu Nuwas. And Abu Nuwas was actually in the court of Caliph Harun al-Rashid in Baghdad, and this court was very luxurious and there's a lot of debauchery and revelry going on at this court, and he wrote about it, and he wrote these absolutely hysterical and beautiful poems about wine and revelry, and I just loved them. I thought they were like the greatest thing ever. And so that kind of got me started wanting to look at wine poems and literature about wine in history. And so the project kind of evolved and other factors came in, but this was really one of the main ideas that I was looking at. So I have for you today 3 different sources that I picked 2 poems each in. And these poems are spanning language barriers. So we have poems originally written in Hebrew, poems originally written in Arabic, and poems originally written in Latin. Now, what that kind of does is it allows us a little bit to separate them by religion. So that's pretty useful. Christianity, Judaism, and the Islamic poems by Abu Nuwas, which is really great. So it's really interesting to look at the differences because of the different ways that each religion treats wine. So wine is part of religious ceremonies in Christianity as well as in Judaism, but is prohibited for Islamic people. So it's pretty interesting to see the ways that people are kind of responding and writing about it, but at the same time, for the Latin, representing the Christian view of wine, this is medieval Latin student songs. So obviously, in the same way that students here and now drink more, this can't really be kept as a view specifically from the Christian point of view, because these are students, as well as Abu Nuwas is not necessarily indicative of everybody's view, because the court was definitely a very different place then from the rest of the civilization. But it's still really interesting to read these through and kind of see where people are coming from. Something I found interesting is that in Judaism, it's always kind of a communal way of having people around you. It's almost always, wine drinking is almost always accompanied by food. It's almost never simply drinking wine and not having a meal with it. So it's much more like that banquet style that we've seen so much throughout history, where there would be a lot of food brought out, and then at the end there would be wine brought out for everybody to have. And there's a lot of being outside, and that seems to be very important in a lot of the poems, is that the wine that you're drinking, that you're enjoying it in the outdoors with friends and family, and it's all kind of relatively wholesome, a lot of it, which is really nice. And then you have the Abu Nuwas, who's kind of just savoring being this wonderful, crazy party man, and those are pretty interesting. They kind of remind me of like modern day hip-hop or R&B lyrics, and you'll see what I mean when I start to read them. So let's get started, because these are a lot of fun. So first we have Abu Nuwas, my favorite, and I'm just going to read for you 2 poems, and I'll pause in between. Thou scourger of the grape and me, ne'er shall win thy smile, because against thee I rebel, 'tis churlish to revile. Ah, breathe no more the name of wine until thou cease to blame, for fear that thou foul tongue should smirch its fair and lovely name. Come pour it out, ye gentle boys, a vintage 10 years old, that seems as though 'twere in the cup a lake of liquid gold. And when the water mingles there, to fancy's eye are set pearls over shining pearls, close strung as in a carcanet. So you can see that it's this rhyming couplet poem form, and it's really lovely to listen to. And we'll just go to the next one, which is, Hoe a cup and fill it up and tell me it is wine, for I will never drink in shade if I can drink in shine. Crust and pour is every hour that sober I must go, but rich am I whene'er well drunk I stagger to and fro. Speak for shame the loved one's name, let vain disguises fall. Good for naught are pleasures hid behind a curtain wall. So as you can see, you have the rhyming couplet form we were talking about. This kind of, it does sound like lyrics to maybe a hip hop or R&B song, but also you hear about going outside. I wouldn't drink in shade if I can drink in shine, and that will carry through to the Hebrew poems. So great. Why don't we look into those? So in the Hebrew poems, I have two here that I've marked. And this one is by Samuel the Nagid. Your debt to God is righteously to live, and his to you your recompense to give. Do not wear out your days in serving God. Have some time, devote to him, some to yourself. To him give half your day, to work the rest, but give the jug no rest throughout the night. Put out your lamps, use crystal cups for light. Away with singers, bottles are better than lutes. No song nor wine, nor friend beneath the sward. These, O fools, are all of life's reward. So kind of reminding me of the idea of life's reward of the Wine and Death video, and the ways that we were speaking about how there were two schools of thought. That one was speaking about how you could live your life to the fullest and enjoy every day, and life's reward being you know, this fun revelry idea, or thinking about life being for good works and religion and things like that. So kind of interesting to think about the connections between these. And then the next one is also by the same author, Samuel the Nagid, and it goes like this. Take from a fawn the crystal filled with blood, of grapes as bright as hailstones filled with fire. Her lips are a scarlet thread, her kisses wine. Her mouth and body wear the same perfume. Her hands are crystal wands with tiny ruby tips. She tints her fingers with her victim's blood. So that's kind of a saucy poem, and it definitely reminds me as well a lot of the Wine and Death video. Go check it out if you haven't already. Just because talking about blood and wine and this idea of kind of, there's a juxtaposition between this kind of white, pure chalice, this crystal goblet, and then this blood wine coming through, and speaking about the woman and the wine kind of being a continuation of one another. And that is actually a lot of what we see as well in other Arabic poems, is grouping together these ideas of revelry and women and song and wine together, and then everything else on the other side. So all the sin is kind of wrapped up in one, and you get a lot of crossover between that, which I think is interesting that it also showed up here in these Hebrew poems. And last but certainly not least, we have Wine, Women, and Song, medieval Latin student songs. So these are also really funny. Please look them up online. If you can find them somewhere, absolutely worth it. They are, well, I'll read it for you and you'll find out. So here is one poem. Some are gaming, some are drinking, some are living without thinking. And of those who make the racket, some are stripped of coat and jacket. Some get clothes of finer feather, some are cleaned out altogether. No one there dreads death's invasion, but all drink in emulation. So this idea of partying until you died was really popular with the medieval Latin students. I don't want to lump everybody in together, but the students really had a lot of partying going on, and that made for some really entertaining wine poems, because students, it was kind of similar to today and kind of not similar to today, in that students would actually leave their homes and go on this wandering, traveling life kind of, because they would follow around their teachers and they would be removed from their families. So if you go and you live at uni and you're staying there, you kind of get more of an idea of being removed from your parents, and there's this whole group of young, smart, you know, people, young men, and kind of the things that they wrote about were very amusing. So next we have the final poem of the video. It is called A Sequence in Praise of Wine. Wine the good and bland, thou blessing, of the good the bad's distressing. Sweet of taste, by all confessing, hail thou world's felicity. Hail thy hue, life's gloom dispelling. Hail thy taste, all tastes excelling. By thy power, in this thy dwelling, deign to make us drunk with thee. Oh, how blessed, for bounteous uses, is the birth of pure vine juices. Safe's the table which produces wine in goodly quality. Oh, in color, how auspicious, oh, in odor, how delicious. In the mouth, how sweet, propitious, to the tongue enthralled by thee. Bless the man who first thee planted, called thee by thy name enchanted. He whose cups have ne'er been scanted, dreads no danger that may be. Bless the belly where thou bidest, bless the tongue where thou residest. Bless the mouth through which thou glidest, and the lips thrice blessed by thee. Therefore let wine's praise be sounded, healths to toppers all propounded. We shall never be confounded, topping for eternity. Pray we, here be thou still flowing, plenty on our board bestowing, while with jocund voice we're showing how we serve thee jubilee. So as you can tell, these are really fantastic poems. I hope you're as excited about them as I am. Please go look for them online. I'll definitely put the names of these books and the names of the authors at the end of the video. But yes, definitely check it out if you like it. Perhaps it will inspire you like it inspired me. And I'll see you next time. Cheers!